I am indeed Simon Spurrell from the Cheshire Cheese Company. I'm also director of the Hearty Creamery, which is the smallest Stilton maker in the UK as well. So we have had several things affect us as a cheese producer since January the 1st. Some were planned for, we knew about, but the largest effect for us has been the loss of the entirety of the EU consumer market for our direct online sales. So we were prepared for the extra paperwork that was going to be required for export, something we'd been doing for quite a while anyway. We shipped to Canada, United States of America, Norway, several other countries. So we're well aware of the requirement for a health certificate, also known as an EHC. So for those that don't actually know what a health certificate is, a health certificate is a veterinary surgeon, would you believe, comes out to us, inspects a consignment, and then stamps the paperwork that we have pre-created. This costs £180 per consignment. So just remember that value, £180. Now, the shock to us and everybody, including government officials as well, because they completely and utterly missed this, was that after the first week back from January, we continued to send parcels to the EU. We built up quite a strong online sales market to the EU over the last year. We had 400% growth overall on our online sales. Lots of it was due to obviously the pandemic and so on, but we put a lot of effort into it. We've got German language and a French language versions of our website, and we plowed a lot of effort into that. We thought we'll give ourselves a head start, a run up to this one, so that come 1st of January there we'll be ahead of the crowd and we'll have already an established audience in the EU. So nobody prepared us whatsoever for what actually happened in the first week of January, which was that 60 parcels eventually came back that we sent with DHL. DHL at first couldn't tell us why, neither could DPD either. So, because they had absolutely no idea this was a thing that had actually been allowed to happen. So in simplistic terms, during the negotiation, it was completely missed that an EHC certificate does not only apply in the EU to a consignment of, say, a container load of cheese or a pallet load of cheese. It also applies to a single consumer. So somebody buying £20 worth of cheese from our website, the EU expects us to create the paperwork, which is absolutely enormous, which I know Jonathan will probably know about from phytosanitary as well, and get a veterinary certificate per individual for £180. So as you can imagine, an absolute total impossibility for being able to do that. So we have no market in the EU whatsoever for direct sales, completely and utterly wiped out overnight. To give you sort of scale of that, we built up the market last year in the EU to about £180,000. We expected that to grow to £250,000 this year because we're good at marketing. We know how to predict markets, and that was our plan. So there isn't actually a way around this. There is no possible way for us to ship to a consumer from the UK if we have an animal-based foodstuff in there. So that cheese, meat, seafood, as we know, fish, etc. So this isn't just affecting us as cheesemakers. This is affecting everybody that makes food that wants sold via internet sales successfully as the EU, as we did last year. So I raised a lot of publicity about this. The hardest thing was actually making anybody believe that this was an actual thing that actually had been allowed to happen. I'm talking MPs as well. So we have two local MPs. We have Sarah Dean's MP for our Derbyshire Hearty Creamery, and we also have David Rutley for our Macclesfield, Cheshire business as well. Both of those MPs couldn't believe that this was what I was telling them was true, and I must have made a mistake. It was paperwork issues. DHL said, "Oh, well, maybe just try again, but put the invoice on the outside of the package." So if I didn't know, then DHL and DPD not knowing is far greater an issue than a small business in Macclesfield having misread something which I hadn't done. There was never at any point any pre-warning of this. There was no understanding of this, and there is no actual fix for this. We've also lost the ability to ship to Northern Ireland as well, for exactly the same reason, because the border, of course, is in the United Kingdom, the mainland. So we all of a sudden overnight we had an ocean of opportunity that quickly dwindled to a pond, which is now becoming a puddle, because not only have we lost the EU, we've lost part of the United Kingdom as well. So we had great plans for this year. Actually, we have a planning permission for £1 million fulfilment centre that was going to actually be part of our growth strategy for this year. We're still going to go ahead with that. We've outgrown the building we're in at the moment, and we had a very successful year in the UK anyway in growth terms. However, we're having to scale back the size of that fulfilment centre because it's £250,000 light in expectation of turnover. We have reached out, I've reached out to the DEFRA and to the Minister of Agriculture, and I have actually been promised twice now, because it's now 6 weeks since I was originally promised and then reaffirmed last week, which does seem to trigger their affirmations only when we have a viral tweet, which we had initially with 4.5 million hits on one tweet we put on our one Cheshire Cheese account. That triggered the first sort of interaction from the ministers saying, yes, don't worry, we will actually talk to you, we'll have a conversation. Absolute silence for quite a while. Then I was on James O'Brien's show about a week ago, and James kindly tweeted, that went viral again. I think there was something ridiculous like 1,600 retweets on that, and that triggered another response from the politicians who said, sorry, it's taking a while. It will happen. We'll have a discussion with you. The thing is, I don't really know what they can discuss, because unless they can completely and utterly renegotiate the deal that has been actually already put in place, I can't see a way around this. I have a theory why we're actually in this situation, and the same situation is affecting the seafood and the bivalve, anybody that actually ships food. Not just wholesale, but also actually in terms of the consumer direct sales. Back in October 2020, Prime Minister Johnson used his whip and his majority to make an amendment to the agriculture bill. So I don't know if you remember this, but the agriculture bill came up for debate, and Johnson wanted to reduce or remove the alignment with EU food standards, which the Lords rejected, most of the MPs rejected. However, he used his whip and majority to force through an amendment which allowed the UK to remove its alignment with the EU food standard. So the EU food standards is and was our food standard from 2002. And in fact, I believe that the EU actually adopted our higher standards as its de facto. So the reason he did this is because he eyed up a lucrative deal, I think it was called, with Trump and the USA. The only way that the United Kingdom can allow the import of foodstuff, you may remember chlorinated chicken was one part of the discussion, is to lower the UK's food standards to less than those that are with the EU. So the only way he could do that was to remove in law the alignment with the EU food standard. So he forced through the change in that. And of course, we all know what actually happened there. He believed Trump was going to get a second term as much as Trump did. It's not happened. And Joe Biden has said, I'm not willing to look at a deal with the United Kingdom for at least 2 years, maybe even longer. So I think that one single act is the knock-on effect, the domino effect that has caused the situation, not just with ourselves, but also with every other food producer. And I'm talking about wholesale as well, because it is incredibly difficult to ship wholesale to the EU as well, which we've done several times since January. But it is this 4 hours worth of paperwork involved. The veterinary surgeon still charges his £180 for this consignment. But he was there for two hours nearly because he didn't really understand the paperwork either. If we had alignment with the EU food standards, it is my belief that we would have the frictionless trade that was promised, but completely overlooked by not understanding the knock-on effects of removing that alignment for reducing our food standard. My belief is that if we had alignment still with the EU food standards, then I wouldn't be talking to you now. We wouldn't have the problem. The seafood would be flowing. The bivalves wouldn't need the certification that is unavailable in the UK for cleaning them. So I think there is, a total failure from that point, and this hasn't been rationalised or realised going through. What do we do from here? Well, one of the options we do have is that we have to think about, is there an option for us to fulfill our orders for internet orders over in the EU? We have a wholesaler in France. We have made initial discussions with them. And yes, that is one opportunity for us, would be to actually have a mirrored operation over in France. Very expensive. We have 400 lines of products, so we'd have to mirror those, because it's not just cheese we're selling gifts as well. So there's the chutneys go inside that, there's the boxes, the filling, the wrapping. It is big upheaval. It could cost us around 150 to 200,000 pounds to actually set this up. My fear is we're a small business in many terms. There we go to this expense, and in April or July, because they're the two break points. I don't know if you actually realise this, but there is no reciprocation at the moment. The EU has complete, utter freedom to carry on as normal. They have no restrictions. They have no paperwork. They're just operating as if we were still part of the EU. So come April or July, I was told by a representative from DEFRA that it might make me feel better, which it doesn't, by the way, that they're going to reciprocate, and they're going to stop the EU producers from actually having access to the UK consumer market, and they're going to make it as difficult, as she said, for us to get product over there. They're going to do exactly the same to make it as difficult as possible for them to get products into us. So all I foresee is going to be an enormous trade war, because the EU won't like this at all. So they're going to reciprocate, because they've got bigger teeth than we have at the end of the day. And we're one country versus 26. They're 446 million consumer market versus 67 million. So I foresee there's a risk for a small business like ourselves investing over in Europe, just to find that in April or in July, an almighty trade war, and we've just wasted a load of money. And I can imagine there wouldn't be any handouts for us to actually compensate having made that investment either. So we are completely and utterly stuck in no man's land. We're in limbo really at the moment. We don't know what to do. I really do want to have this meeting with ministers as promised, and as soon as I do, I shall let as many people know. But in the meantime, I continue, as I was saying before to some of the other speakers, this is my, I think it's 87th interview in the last 5 weeks. And, the only way to make them listen is to shout. And, if that's what it needs to be heard, then I shall continue shouting until something happens. So on that note, it doesn't sound particularly positive. I'll leave you with one positive. The one positive is that there has been an enormous rise in nationalistic sentiment by British. We have had the two best months that we could ever imagine. There was 750% up, would you believe, in January and February. And that has been driven by the amount of publicity we had and people actually buying British and sort of championing us and trying to support us. So I have to say, thank you very much to my fellow countrymen there, because you have filled a very large hole that we were facing because of the loss of revenue from the EU. On that point, I shall hand over to the next speaker.